You're on the clock in your draft, and you're faced with the age-old decision of Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase. But which one is the right call? Stay tuned to the Fantasy Football Universe to find out. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Fantasy Football Universe. I am Aaron St. Dennis at FF Mad Scientist, joined by Jesse Moeller at JMoeller05 and Jeremy Schulman at FF_Rebel. I'm not used to our new setup here. I forgot we did this on Friday, and we haven't streamed since. I went camping with the kid, and I logged in. And I said, "Oh, it's not the usual format. I'm not looking where I'm used to looking." So, welcome into the new look Fantasy Football Universe. We've got a little bit of some different things going on here. So we've rebranded a bit, some new shows. What Jesse's got, the Lowdown. Jeremy's got Fantasy Minute. Then we have SC with the PPR show and Debbie Diamonds. That sounds like a really bad stripper name when you say it fast. I'm not going to lie. I don't know how many times I've tried to voice text myself a note saying, set a notification for Debbie Diamonds for later, blah, 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 to do this graphic, and I'll get back and it says Debbie Diamonds. And I'm like,
I'm sure you can go to Vegas and find yourself a Debbie Diamonds, but we don't need to dive into that too much.
All right.
Listen, the Debbie assets are like strippers anyway. You throw a bunch of cash at them and very little return. So
that might be the best analogy I've ever heard of fucking Debbie players in my life. Fuck. All right. Well, welcome back. We're going to get into it. Check out all of our written stuff over at fantasyfootballuniverse.com. Follow us everywhere on all the social medias. Like, rate, review, subscribe, follow, all that fun stuff. We would greatly appreciate it. Today, we are trying something new. We're done with rookies, and it's almost Scott Fishbowl time, so that means it's time to switch into redraft here. We've been pretty much dynasty focused since, like, January, something like that. So let's try and focus a little bit here on redraft. And when we wanted to compare two players head-to-head, the first option we got in the Twitter poll was like 95%, Justin Jefferson versus Jamar Chase. So those are the two we're going to look at. I've seen them everywhere in redraft. Like they're obviously in so we'll call it single QB because, Superflex just disregard the quarterbacks. But with the exception of maybe McCaffrey or Bijan in some cases, they're typically the first players off the board. I've seen them anywhere between, 1 and 2. I've seen them 3 and 4. Some leagues, you see Lamb go first. Sometimes you see Hill. I think that's probably the one we'll do next is Lamb versus Hill. But for now, we've got, at very worst, 2 of the top 4 here. In some cases, the number 1 and 2. So like I said, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. I'm going to look over some of the stats here. So Minnesota's Justin Jefferson. He has played 4 years, finished as wide receiver 5, 4, 1, and 29 last year. Only played 10 games last year. Every other season he played every game. So he has last year only 68 catches on 100 targets, 1,074 receiving yards, and 5 touchdowns. That would be a considerable career low in receptions. His previous low was 88. Career low in targets. Previous low was 125. 1,074 receiving yards was a low by almost a little over 320 receiving yards. And his touchdowns, his lowest before that was 7. So not a great year. Obviously, quarterback injury issues, and he didn't play all that much. We'll look on the other hand. Jamar Chase was a year younger. He's played 3 seasons. I didn't realize he hasn't been as good. Like you see, Jefferson's been 5, 4, 1, and wide receiver 29. Chase has been good, but he's been 5, 12, and 13. So borderline, he's been more of a borderline low-end wide receiver 1 than anything. And I didn't realize that until really looking at the stats. Last year, 100 receptions on 145 targets, 1,216 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns. That's kind of a mixed bag. It was a high in targets and a high in receptions, but he still was unable to put up as many receiving yards, over 200 more in his rookie season and 5 touchdowns more as a rookie. So despite having 19 receptions more and about 20 targets more, he was a better producer in his rookie season. Where do you guys want to start here? What do you think about their production? Did that surprise you that, Jefferson's posted 3 top 5 seasons going into last year? Jamar Chase is really his best is 5 overall. He's really been more of a low-end wide receiver one than the elite asset everyone makes him out to be, which kind of surprised me. I was expecting to see like Jefferson 5, 4, 1, stuff like that, not 5, 12, 13. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'd say like Chase gets a little bit of asterisk because not last year, but the year before, he basically had the broken like hip situation and missed quite a few games. So that really squashes stats. But even if we look at Jefferson on the flip side, even without Kirk Cousins last year, he was still the wide receiver 3 in points per game. So like he missed some time, but he came back and he was stronger than ever. I think he averaged 20.0 points per game without Kirk Cousins. So like Jefferson's just been the gold standard of wide receiver. We're always trying to find the next Jefferson compared to him. Jamar Chase is close, but I'm just going to default to the guy that's been perennial 90 plus PFF like graded wide receiver. He's been top 5 his entire time in the NFL. Like he's a truly special player, and I love Jamar Chase, but like it's Jefferson.
No Joe Burrow too, though. So you gotta, he still finished what I say, wide receiver 13 overall, and he played a good portion of the season. I'll have to look up here. I don't remember how many Burrow missed, but it was
week
a lot.
11. Burrow got hurt. Week 11.
Oh yeah, okay. So he played 10 games. So he played 6 or 7 games here with who the hell was it?
What's his name? I'm blanking on that too.
It's Browning. Yeah. Yes, it's Jake Browning. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, listen, at the wide receiver position, not only are we looking for elite talents, but we're also looking for volume. All right. And that's one thing that Justin Jefferson hasn't had a problem with. His first season in the league, 125 targets, but then 167 and 184 targets in 2022 before getting injured last season and only playing in, I think, about half the games, maybe a little bit more. So I think it was 10 games. So Justin Jefferson always has the volume that we want. Jamar Chase had 145 targets, without Joe Burrow last year, and that was his target high for his career. So both of these guys are going to be hyper targeted for their team, but really it just kind of depends on, number one, the quality of those targets and, in terms of who they're coming from. And number two, if they're able to kind of dominate the share on the team and the offense can move the ball.
Got the Fantasy Pros ADP up for redraft right now. So it's CMC to start. Then it's Lamb, Hill, Chase, Jefferson. So we see them as wide receiver 3 and 4. It's pretty much what everyone expected. I guess the next question would be, you're right, it's the quarterback situation, I think, here is I guess let's take a look. Let me look at the depth charts here. So for Jefferson, he is his target competition is going to be Jordan Addison. There's not a whole lot else on the receiving corner. Like you've got Brandon Powell, Trent Sherfield, Jalen Naylor, N'Keal Harry. You've got TJ Hawkinson as the tight end here. We're not sure his health status here. Is he going to be back? Is he going to be ready? So right now I'm counting his only legit target competition here as Jordan Addison. We go over to the Bengals. It's thinned out a bit. Like we've seen Tyler Boyd move on, but he's got T. Higgins, who for all intents and purposes, until they've actually moved on from him, we think he's going to be here this year. So he's got Higgins, Jermaine Burton out of Alabama, who I thought pretty highly of, Trent Irwin, Andre Yoshivas, Charlie Jones. Not a whole lot of depth there. Tight end, there's not much. We've got Mike Gesicki, Drew Sample, Eric All. I guess who do you like better as far as target competition? Like I don't think either roster's really stacked, but I think T. Higgins is a better number 2 than Jordan Addison, and I don't really think there is a number 3 on Minnesota. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I actually agree with that. And I think until Hawkinson gets back, we don't know when he's coming back. I'm kind of treating these guys as being just like the 1, and then there's a 2, and then there's just a bunch of other guys. I think Cincinnati has actually better depth outside, like we talk about with Burton. I think Eric All is like a good tight end. Like he's a guy that can progress into possibly something the rookie. So yeah, like it's my situation more depends on the quarterback and really like how the targets are going to shift, because we saw this Minnesota last year. Their defense was pretty terrible. If they turn that defense around, that's going to shift how much they're going to pass. And that's That's my more main concern between the two of them. Like I could see if I look at the two of them and I'm debating on targets and who gets more targets. Like I could see Jamar Chase just out targeting him based on how the defense plays and how that team plays with Burrow, as opposed to JJ in Minnesota having a rookie quarterback. You're not going to want to fully put everything on him. You kind of want to ease him into it. So it could be a slow start for Jefferson as they slowly progress through. So it wouldn't surprise me to see Jamar Chase have like 20 to 30 more targets over the year. Probably.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. The only thing that I would say is Minnesota's defense. I mean, we like Brian Flores, but they tried to fortify that defense, but they didn't really do much in the way of adding supreme talent. I mean, they lost who DJ Wonham went over to Carolina. I think mid-season, right? They shipped out who was the big pass rusher there in Minnesota?
Daniel Hunter.
Yeah. I was gonna say they lost their best defensive player, Daniel Hunter.
And then they just kind of brought in like Blake Cashman and like these other filler pieces that don't really make a huge splash. So I don't see their defense really improving. And in terms of Cincinnati, they have a young core, especially in the secondary. They have those older guys along the line, so they'll have a better defense. That to me says that Minnesota should be throwing the ball more, but then you're weighing the difference between JJ McCarthy targets, which is a relative unknown, and Joe Burrow targets. But to answer your question quickly, I think there's no clear number 3 on either one of these teams. It's going to depend on if these quarterbacks start checking down. TJ Hawkinson, he'll be back. He'll be a number 3 when he's back. There's no tight ends to speak of in Cincinnati. So is Chase Brown going to take on that role? He only had 15 targets last year, so we'll have to see if him or Moss take on the check down role. It's unlikely. So I think Jamar Chase wins the target competition relatively clearly. Like Jesse was saying, 20, 30 more targets makes a lot of sense to me.
I like Cashman, but he's not enough to make up for the loss of Daniel Hunter. So you're right about the defense there. I guess ultimately that's what we're going to have to get into here. It's going to be the debate of, okay, I think as far as upside and overall talent, I think this one's a slam dunk for Justin Jefferson. I think we've seen he has the ability to be a top 5 every season, whereas we're a bit more projecting what we think Jamar Chase should be after a rookie season. But I think in the end, it's going to be, is the gap in talent or even production between Jefferson and Chase enough to overcome the gap between JJ McCarthy and Joe Burrow? So we've got Burrow on the Bengals. The funny part is, if you look on ESPN, then the starting quarterback listed for the Vikings is actually Sam Darnold. So
yeah, sir.
What are your thoughts here? Obviously JJ is going to be a rookie. So even if you don't mind, I see everyone's really low on Joe Burrow this year after the injury. So I have a ton of shares of him. I'm still all in on Joe Burrow. So I think it's a massive gap between him and JJ. What do you guys think here on the QB battle?
Well, with the way with the backup quarterbacks and how it usually works, so say if it's Sam Darnold or these worst quarterbacks, they usually hyper target the wide receiver one because they cannot progress the field correctly. So they're going to just absolutely pepper the first guy with targets. So like, I could go back and forth on how I want to view this with Jefferson. You could view it as like he has minimal competition. He has JJ. He has Sam Darnold. They're just going to absolutely just feast him because why would you throw it to anyone else when you have Justin Jefferson? So we see this with like DeAndre Hopkins in years past where he had Tom Savage's quarterback putting up like 160, 170 target seasons and having monster seasons. He just didn't have the wide receiver 1 season. So like I think the floor is still really high with him. We saw it last year. He was 20 points per game with whoever was the backup last season once Cousins went down. But yeah, like it just seems safer with Burrow. You know what you're getting. You know you're getting high-end quarterback play, and maybe someone's worried about the injury to his wrist. But, like, I'm not a doctor. I'm not trying to predict that. If he's healthy and he's going to play, I'm going to trust Burrow. So, yeah, I would default to Burrow between the two of them. It just seems like a much safer decision. And I'd also say, like, the ceiling is there, too, where he could revert to what he did a few years ago where he was pushing wide receiver 1.
Yeah. And if Darnold is the week 1 starter, we talk about this all the time. You got to look at the bye week for the Minnesota Vikings. Their bye week this year's a little bit early. It's week 6. So you could theoretically easily see Sam Darnold start those first 5 games, bye week in week 6 to get JJ acclimated, and then it's wheels up for him down the stretch. That doesn't do much for Justin Jefferson in terms of kind of having to adjust to a new quarterback on the fly. I think ideally Minnesota would love to see JJ McCarthy in that role week 1. But you just don't know how it's going to look. In terms of their schedules, they all look relatively, not easy, but not terribly difficult either. So it's just kind of, I'm going to default to Burrow in place and that connection that those guys have had for years, well over Jefferson with a new quarterback.
Yeah, I think it's a catch-22. I assume it's JJ, but even if it's Darnold, you're right. The backup or rookie quarterbacks tend to hyper target their number one, which is good. But the problem is they tend to also have really shitty, unproductive offenses. So I think that could be enough right there to really take a lot out of Jefferson. But I'm going to look at some of the advanced stats and metrics here we have from Player Profiler. Jamar Chase, as far as air yards, he was 26th in air yards, 26 overall in deep targets, 8th in red zone targets, whereas Jefferson was 23rd in air yards, so slightly better, 15th in deep targets, so what did I say, a little bit better there. And red zone targets, he was 44th. So Jefferson was slightly better across the board as far as air yards and deep targets, but Jamar Chase really seemed to be one of the more elite red zone targets. I don't know if that's Jefferson's lack of red zone targets was, I don't know, more of an indication of how much better TJ Hawkinson was than anything the Bengals, were trotting out there at tight end. What do you guys think there?
Yeah, that I was actually going to bring that up because what that did when they brought in TJ Hawkinson, that allowed Justin Jefferson to push down the field farther. That's why you saw his yards per target and everything go up. But also, like on the flip side, like the touchdowns and the impact, Justin Jefferson had a career low in touchdowns. I think 7 was the career low before last year. Last year he had 5. So Hawkinson might be stealing a little bit of his touchdown upside with you. So it's kind of like we talk about, you have to take these stats with a little bit of context because they work both ways. But having TJ Hawkinson in the field allows Justin Jefferson to play on field more. So without TJ Hawkinson early in the season, I expect Justin Jefferson to be more back to what he was before, where he's going to be intermediate, cutting across, giving this quarterback easy targets because that's what you want to give like your rookie or backup quarterback. So I kind of expect his numbers to change a little bit this year.
Yeah. It's interesting to think about what that Minnesota offense is going to look like without TJ Hawkinson. I mean, we're assuming Robert Tonyan perhaps is taking on that role until Hawk is ready. They also, don't forget, don't have KJ Osborne, right? So it's Brandon Powell or Jalen Naylor or whoever they're going to plug in, in this 11 personnel. Again, without TJ Hawkinson, you might see a lot of Aaron Jones and Ty Chandler on the field at the same time. Just to try and mix things up, and both of those guys out the backfield because we know that they can catch the ball. So I don't know what they're going to do early on. We know they're going to move Justin Jefferson around and get him in space. But yeah, I think it's going to be a really weird first 5 weeks for this Minnesota team feeling it out. And that's, I think, an argument why you are going to see Sam Darnold just be in there, be a stopgap, and they'll get everything together. Hopefully TJ back by week 7. With JJ McCarthy in there, and then they're ready to go. On the flip side, the only thing Cincinnati has to deal with is the new offensive coordinator, but they have an offensive-minded head coach in Zach Taylor, so that's not really going to be, and a promotion of the quarterbacks coach, who is a pitcher, Dan Pitcher. So it's not really going to be an issue there in terms of continuity. It's just something that's a little bit different. Meanwhile, it's a whole turnover for Minnesota. So yeah, I'm erring on the side of Jamar Chase here in most categories.
Yeah.
The other notable category is Yak. For yards after catch, Jamar Chase last year had 541, and he's seventh best in the league among receivers. Jefferson only had 260, and he's 39th. I didn't realize Jamar Chase was that much better in Yak. We see a few other interesting ones. Target accuracy. I know we thought Kirk Cousins was this solid, reliable quarterback, but the accuracy of Jefferson's targets were only 69th best as opposed to 40th best for Jamar Chase, which I realize obviously some of that came with a backup quarterback as well. So maybe the downgrade from Kirk Cousins here to a rookie quarterback as far as catchable targets might not be a whole lot worse than we thought. It just it really surprised me, the difference here in yak ability. That a difference maker for either of you?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of Jamar Chase, Colin Carter since he came in the league. Like, he's built that way. He's a little bit thicker. I know they look similar, but like the way he plays more resembles a running back with the ball in his hands than Justin Jefferson. So if you want to like talk about yak, I think it's clearly Jamar Chase. I think that's like he's one of the best outside of Debo. I think he's one of the best yak wide receivers in the NFL.
Yeah, you don't see a ton of Justin Jefferson used on those like bubbles or kind of short screens with a ton of blockers out front. You'll see more or less Jamar Chase do that a couple times a game. And like you said, Jesse, earlier, he's more the downfield guy. It'll be interesting to see what they do minus TJ Hawkinson and how they try and manipulate the offense. But Jordan Addison isn't really or hasn't been, at least in his career, a down the field type guy. He's been more of those slants and crossers in the intermediate and short area of the field. So you kind of have to continue to stretch the field with Justin Jefferson. So I don't see the yak really improving for him, because his role probably won't change a ton other than moving him around the formation.
All right, so I guess in the end, it's decision time. You're on the clock at whatever pick you think this is. This could be the 101 in single QB. This could be the 104, I guess. Who you got here, Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson? Who's the right pick?
So as much as I want to pick Jamar Chase here, I'm still going to put Justin Jefferson just because I saw it last year. Without his quarterback, he was a 20-plus point wide receiver, and this was without Kirk Cousins on top of it too. So I think kind of everything kind of works in his favor. And I know I was talking against it, but like I think he's the best wide receiver in the NFL. So I'm betting on the talent of the best wide receiver in the NFL. And I was looking at the schedule. It's a murderer's row, like weeks 2, 3, 4. Like they could be 0-4 out of the gate if they lose week 1 to the Giants. So like that could cause them to switch to JJ really quick in that offense, and they just move past Sam Darnold. So I'm just gonna bet with Justin Jefferson. Like he's supremely.
Do you really
talented.
think they start? Do you think they start Darnold out of the season? Because that's not even something I've considered. I don't think it's at all possible. Do you think they're going to start Darnold for the season?
I think so. Yeah, we see it kind of like he's not a top 3 pick, so they're going to give him a little bit of time just to kind of progress. But it could be a situation we see where JJ just beats him out of the job. Like I wouldn't be shocked to see that either, right? Because we know what Sam Darnold is. Like he has over 100 career starts. He is Sam Darnold. He's not going to improve. The scheme will help both of these guys. So I very much love what KOC does for those guys. So I think everything together, I'm just gonna take Jefferson. He's just super safe. Like I don't have to worry about it. But where you at, Jeremy?
I think from a team perspective, you have to start Sam Darnold. You get the Giants first, but then Jesse, like you were talking about, it's the 49ers, it's the Texans, it's the Packers, 3 games in a row that you're going to lose, even if you have your quarterback in place. And then you have the Jets not looking good in week 5 before your bye. So I think if you consider kind of the defenses that Minnesota is going to face with a subpar offensive line, you don't want JJ McCarthy back there getting absolutely crushed in the game, on the scoreboard, and then getting absolutely crushed by these defenders just coming in at him in his first few seasons. You don't want a David Carr situation to crop up where he's just put on his back all the time and just totally loses confidence. So I think you have to start Sam Darnold, go through those growing pains, make sure McCarthy is 100% on this offense, and then put him in week 7. But to that point, it's a lost season anyway for Minnesota. I think this is a growing season. Sucks for Jefferson, but he's going to be there for a long time. So yeah, I want Jamar Chase. I think Cincinnati is well positioned, just from the continuity, just from Joe Burrow. I'm not really concerned like you, Aaron. I'm not concerned about Burrow's wrist. He seems healthy. He's thrown it. No. And in terms of the offensive minds for both of these teams, you really couldn't ask for better guys scheming up the offense than these 2 head coaches. So, I'm giving the edge to Jamar by a significant amount.
I think Justin Jefferson's floor is equal to Jamar Chase's ceiling. The quarterback situation scares me, but in the end, I think Jefferson's so much better than pretty much every receiver in the NFL that I'm taking Jefferson here for me. So,
just one point on that: you guys are saying Jefferson's probably the best receiver in the NFL. Sure, Jamar Chase is probably the 3rd best receiver in the NFL. So it's not like we're not talking about massive difference in skill level here, but I think there's a massive difference in situation.
Actually, I'm not even saying that. I have them as 3 and 4. My 1 and 2 right now are Tyreek and CD. So I think Jefferson's the 3rd best. So, but that's also because Lamb could have just an absolutely insane target share. So
he should.
Yep. Yeah. Same thing once again for him. Yeah, it's really how you just view these 2 because I think it's very similar. And we talk about this all the time. Like
either way, you're getting someone good.
Yeah, you're getting an elite talent, and I think you basically, if you want to push, truly push for that ceiling, if you're not worried about quarterback situation, just take Jamar Chase. But realistic, we've seen Justin Jefferson, every year, like people will talk about him. It's like you just lock him in top 5, like you don't have to worry about it. Like I think his floor is what, like wide receiver 6 on the season. Like I don't think he's gonna drop below that.
No.
Yeah,
I just find he's been a little more inconsistent too. Like he'll put up 30 and then put up nothing. And Jefferson's pretty stable. I mean, at least until you start him in the fantasy championship, then he puts up nothing. But
that was 2 years ago. Lost a lot of games 2 years ago.
That was glorious.
Happened last year too, didn't it? It was 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
So.
He struggled. Yeah, I went up against the championship and had Mike Evans like 50 burger to him. So it was a nice day. It was a nice day. I remember that.
All right, that concludes our first player debate of Justin Jefferson versus Jamar Chase. We had 2 votes for Jefferson, 1 for Chase. Check back tomorrow for the next in our series. I think we want to go to another position, so I guess we can decide it on the air right now. What do we want to do next? Hurts. The options we got are Hurts, Allen, McBride, Laporta, or Bijan CMC. I think those were our options. What do we want to do? What position you want to pivot to?
I think the closest one for me is probably the quarterbacks, but like I'm down to do whatever. Which one do you want to do?
I think I like the quarterback too. So
all right, quarterback it is. Let's do it.
All right, check back tomorrow. We're gonna do Jalen Hurts versus Josh Allen. Thank you all for tuning in. Head over to fantasyfootballuniverse.com for all of our written content, or like, follow, rate, review, subscribe, all that fun stuff on any of our social media, and we would appreciate it. Thank you all for tuning in. Take care and have a great day.